Welcome to the Homegrown Hunter TV. Matt Cassie and I are headed westbound to Wisconsin to help balance the doe population. We'll be hunting over food plots with archery equipment in mid-October, ready to fill 6 doe tags. Homegrown Hunter TV has been brought to you by Rack Stacker Brand Products, Canada's leading big game attractants company. Campbellford Chrysler, a small town dealer with a huge inventory. And Huckabones Equipment, Ottawa Valley's Kubota dealer. And these other fine sponsors. It was a beautiful day of travel for the 13 hours that Matt and I had to go westbound into Marquette County, Wisconsin. We'll be hunting with friends Mike and Andrea Kohnke to help them harvest some does off the land that they currently hunt. Marquette County is only 1,200 square miles and in central Wisconsin farmland. With the abundance of available food, the deer population is getting very thick. With an additional 8,000 doe tags available, Mike had invited us up to spend some time with him and his family during the archery season. During our travels, we had to pop into Michigan Whitetail Hall of Fame, located just an hour west of Detroit. This is where a lot of North America's giant whitetails are on display, mostly being replicas, but gives you a solid idea how big these deer really are and can get in size.
Look at how massive it is. I can't even believe these deer even existed.
Absolutely insane. You can even see Milo Hansen's buck that is on display for a minor $5 of entry into the museum. It took a day to travel and we lost an hour due to the Central Standard Time. But after a long day, we made it there for a night of rest to get up in the morning. The next AM, we were in the stand waiting for the first doe to pass for an opportunity to fill some tags. In the distance, we could hear an argument of some turkeys in the field. I was surprised with the amount of oak trees that surrounded us, but we didn't see any deer that first morning. We may have bumped them on the way going in though. That evening, Mike had put us on to another stand, but this one was over a food plot. The plot was being hammered by the deer because they were foraging on it in the early parts of October. In Wisconsin, you're unable to bait deer. It's actually illegal. so food plots are a popular way to get the deer into view during the hunt. The little plots that are tucked off into the bush are great ambush locations for harvesting deer in travel areas, especially when the populations are this high. The oak tree that we were in was absolutely loaded with acorns, and below was nothing but trails coming to and from the plot. The gunshots in the background made us wonder if it was going to be a good evening or not, because our anticipation was certainly high. Welcome back to the Homegrown Hunter. The third day, I had set up my camera to see what was going on. The weather had been nasty and the high winds and rain were not doing any good for deer travel. Deer were not cooperating with us, and it was getting quite frustrated for both Matt and I. For the 3 days that Matt and I were hunting, the only deer we seen were the ones what we've seen going into the stands to hunt. But Matt and I persevered and kept on to the plots for some upcoming action, and finally had a doe come out. There was plenty of giggling going on in the corn crib that we were hunting out of, because of the joke was that we were from Canada and we had all these big deer. Well, this young doe that stepped out was certainly not big at all. The landowner wanted us to shoot every doe that we seen because they wanted to balance the buck to doe ratio, because it was out of whack. So this deer was on the hit list and was due to get shot. We discussed shooting this deer for about 30 minutes. We felt bad because at home, this deer would have gotten a pass. However, we were there to do a job, and freezer meat was okay with us. The deer had made it around the food plot in front of the camera that I had placed a couple hours before, and before long within range for Matt to shoot. Matt is shooting a 2-blade Rex bid broadhead that is spring loaded. Upon impact, it would create a devastating wound channel. Finally, the monkey is off our back, and we can at least go home saying that we had shot something. One down. She jumped a little bit forward. Does she? There she goes. She's kicking. She's kicking now. Finally, 3 days, buddy. Two buttonbuck fawns worked their way out not long afterwards, and we realized it was a doe fawn that Matt had shot not long before. But Fred, the landowner, was happy that we had done so. They're both buttonbucks. Later in the show, CEO of the Quality Deer Management Association, Brian Murphy, will explain the importance of doe harvest. The rain had started and turkeys entertained us for a while, but nearing the end of the day, a mature doe stepped out at 80 yards and never gave us an opportunity. She wasn't there very long before she took off for the bush. Fred came back to pick us up at dark. We recovered our deer in the rain and then decided to stick it out for the rest of the trip over this plot, more because it was the most activity we'd seen in the 4 days.
Perfect.
This mature doe and fawn were kind of spooked of the camera and never came any closer.
It's taking pictures of them and they don't know what it's doing. Yeah. Yeah, it's taking pictures. That's why she was freaking out.
The turkeys were back at 10 yards. I, of course, had no tags for them. Matt and I ended up heading home after a few days and only one deer in the freezer. Stay tuned as Mike and Andrea get after some antler and another mature doe after the break. We're back in Wisconsin with the Kohnke family over a food plot for whitetails. And now, this week's Cut to the Chase segment brought to you by Rack Stacker.
A lot of deer hunters have questions about doe harvest or antlerless deer harvest. Why should we take them? When should we take them? How many? And which ones? And the first thing is the why. Why do we harvest does? Well, there are a number of reasons. One, in some cases where deer densities are too high, it's about lowering that deer density because obviously the doe is the reproductive segment of the deer herd. Could also be to balance the sex ratio. In many cases, sex ratios get very out of balance when you have 3, 4, 5, 6 does for every buck, and many of those bucks being very young. So those herds are out of balance, if you will, so balancing those deer herds. It's also about providing nutrition to the other deer. Obviously, by harvesting some of the males on a property, you're increasing nutrition so that other does, as well as the bucks, get optimum nutrition. Another question is, when during the season do you harvest them? Do you harvest them early, mid-season, or at the very end of the season? And the best rule of thumb there, in most cases, is to harvest them as early as you can. Because every day they're out there consuming forage that you could leave for other deer, you're taking away from the other deer and your habitat base, particularly prior to winter. In fact, every deer is going to eat about a ton of forage each per year, and every day they're out there, they're consuming about 6 to 8 pounds of really, really critical forage that may be necessary for your deer herd late season.
Of season today, and we've got a little buck moving right into the food plot. We're gonna see if we can draw something else in.
Andrea was hunting with her husband Mike over a food plot when this little yearling came into range. She chose to pass, practicing quality deer management and allowing the yearling to walk in hopes that an older deer would come out before dark. You can see the decoy that they're using on the lower right side of the screen. By passing on that yearling only 30 minutes before, Andrea was rewarded with a mature buck that was right in front of her just before dark. They chose to let this deer sit overnight and track him in the AM. This will ensure they don't bump that deer any further, making it harder for them to track.
In the lungs. There he is. Nice, beautiful deer.
So today we're going to be doing a bore cut. A bore cut is a technique used in tree felling to cut out the interior portion of the wood inside the tree behind your notch. Now we have a face notch here, so when you apply your bore cut, you want to use the bottom portion of the nose of your bar, and that's called the go zone on the bar. And you want to use that portion of the bar to make your pocket on one side of the tree. Get the nose of the bar in there, pivot your hips, use your back leg to help stabilize the back portion of the saw, and then you just push through, and you push that saw all the way through till it comes out the other side of the tree, getting rid of all of that interior wood behind your notch, and that's called the bore cut. So I want to explain to you what the strap wood is, and I've made a bore cut here, bored out the interior of the wood here, established my hinge, and I have left a chunk of live wood on the back side here, and that is called the strap, or the strap wood. And once everything is ready to go and this tree is ready to be felled, I will cut that strap wood. The tree will be released, it'll start to fall. That 10% hinge will do its job and steer the tree on the way down, keeping everything in control.
Now it's time to head out with Mike on a solo hunt to put some meat in the freezer. He was determined to show us that there was lots of does in the area, but for some reason they weren't coming out when we were there.
So here it is the morning after I shot this doe. It was a little bit of a problem last night with the flooded marsh, trying to get good video by myself, dragging her out. So decided to wait till this morning. She only went about 40 yards and tipped over. So can't be more excited. This is my first kill solo filming. So we're gonna get her cut up, get her in the fridge, and get another stand hung, because just after camera light last night, I had 2 of the big bucks walk underneath me. So we're gonna move a stand, get set back a little bit farther into that marsh, and hopefully tonight we can fill our tag on another Wisconsin whitetail.
Many hunters viewing the show may not be familiar with the Quality Deer Management Association. Opportunities to get together with people that think like you do and to learn about deer biology, learn about deer management, learn the cutting edge ways to make your deer herd better, and importantly, your hunting better. At the end of the day, we're all deer hunters. We want to have the best opportunity we can every time we go afield, to enjoy it, to see buck interaction, to potentially harvest a nice buck, great, but there's more to it than that. It's about reconnecting with your habitat, reconnecting as a hunter with your prey in a more meaningful way. Some don't own land, some do, but everybody can learn. Everybody can get more out of their hunting experience. Just want to give back to deer hunting. If it's that important to you, I encourage you to join the Quality Deer Management Association. And QDMA Canada is at the forefront of it in your country, and I encourage you to take a look.
Homegrown Hunter TV has been brought to you by Rack Stacker Brand Products, Canada's leading big game attractants company. Campbellford Chrysler, a small town dealer with a huge inventory. And Hockabones Equipment, Ottawa Valley's Kubota dealer. And these other fine sponsors. Be sure to tune in next week as Matt and I head back to Wisconsin with the smoke poles in December to give the doe harvest another go.